Hello and welcome. This is Krista from the Online Selling Show, and I am here with conversations from the driver's seat as I'm now going to start having these dubbed. And these are what has been like the special edition ones. And I have been really delving into getting started on the Whatnot platform, and I'm realizing the craziness of what I'm seeing over there regarding shipping. And I think shipping has always been a hot topic. To me, it is probably, if it's not the second highest, it is the third highest line item as an expense in a business. Usually the number one is your labor costs and associated things to having employees. Two would be cost of goods, and third is shipping. Sometimes I believe the shipping can be more expensive than the cost of goods. And I think we've all seen that where we've wanted to make purchases for something that's like $3 and we start paying $6 or $8 for shipping. I think we've all had experience like that. So for me, I want to get into the craziness of what I'm seeing. I've been doing this for 22 years. I've seen a lot of evolution come through the shipping platforms. I've used many different shipping service subscriptions where I've bought postage from. I've also used many carriers, meaning I use FedEx, I've used the post office, I've used UPS. I was in a trial run at one point where I was in the logistics of being able to use Amazon for their actual shipping. And I'm talking about when they have the little smiley trucks show up at your house, that logistics, unfortunately, that ended at COVID. They were probably the best at the time, but obviously it was for stuff I was selling on the Amazon platform. So without further ado, I'm going to be doing a multi-part series because I'm realizing as I'm reading comments and things like that, there's a lot of people just getting started. If you've been well versed in doing this, you're probably going to want to skip ahead a few episodes. And for now, I need to talk about what is the basic things of the post office. And I know a lot of us get upset because we look at these costs and we're like, what are they doing? We have to remember that shipping is the commodity of what the post office is selling. It is no different than a grocery store selling you a head of lettuce. It's no different than a car dealership selling you a car. There is things that people have as the commodity to sell to you. And the post office's commodity is moving that package from point A to point B. They try to do it as efficiently, supposedly, as can be, so that you get the service and they're making the money, so to speak, and that's negotiable too because it seems like every year they're losing money. But anyway, that is supposedly how this whole thing works. Now, for them, they have a few guidelines right up front that are considerations that I need to get out of the way for you to start building up and understanding. The first thing is they look at things between a package and an envelope. An envelope to them has to be rigid. And I'm not talking like hardback book cover rigid, but I'm talking they have sorting machines that they put those letters and things like that through, and they can't have it if you've got like a poly mailer, and I think we've all had that with the piece of an article of clothing in it. It's too fluid. It doesn't hold its shape. The only way it's flat is if you put it on a table. So to them, that is why it moves into being a package, because they have different machinery that is scanning and moving those packages along than the stuff that's like a letter that can go through the sorting machine. So basically the sorting machine for many of us resellers is not going to be something feasible because the second criteria is it has to be less than a ½ inch. That's not a very wide opening, and it is got to be, like I said, rigid. So there's really not much other than maybe some ephemera or sports cards, things like that you'd put through there. So right up front, most of us are going to be selling, probably 99% of us, are going to be sending what is known to be packages. Packages from the post office will have 3 dimensions to it, meaning the length, the width, and the height. And if it doesn't fall into that criteria, there may be some things that is different about your package. But for the most part, there's not a lot of irregularities in that. So most of us will be able to ship what is in just either a standard or oversized weight class for them. The things to consider with that is obviously we want to ship our goods in adequate packaging, meaning we're using bubble packaging, like bubble wrap or the air cushions or packing peanuts or maybe craft paper, but you want to use a very sturdy box. You want to use the right packaging materials to assure the package gets through the transportation process without it getting really banged up or the goods inside getting damaged. Having said that, that's a whole nother lesson in itself, but with me being on the East Coast, I've seen what it means to get those packages across country and what those costs associated with. There are a lot of considerations in how you can try to keep costs down, but for the elementary beginning part of this, what I'm telling you have to look at is that you're going to have to make first the determination, is it an envelope or package? Most of them are going to be considered a package. Then you have to start looking at the size of the package. I have an example here of something I shipped off of Whatnot this past week, and they start talking about the total girth of the box. In my example, I had a 36-inch long box that was 6 inches wide and 6 inches tall. So they want you to keep it under 108 inches in total cubic measurements. And that means they will allow you to do the 36, the longest length. Then so you have to add the 36. Then you take the other two measurements, which for me were 6 inches and the 6 inches, which makes 12. You have to double that of 24 and add it to the 36. As long as that number is under 108, for the most part, they will consider that a standard size box. The only exception to that is there is some irregularity shapes in there. There is some extreme lengths that you may have. So if this was a box that was, let's say, 60 inches long, they may have different criteria. I recommend you educate yourself on those very outliers of what was going to be irregular. Other than that, you want to make sure you're putting things in correctly when you're calculating it, because I have shipped some things that were, I would say, if you think some of the figurines that are out there where they may be smaller, but because of their weight, they may fall into, let's say, the higher range. Like the other consideration I should say is that when you're under a pound and you're in this regular 108, under 108 inches, they will up into the 1 pound range, break everything out in 4-ounce increments. So 0 to 4 ounces is all going to be the same cost. From 4 ounces to 7 ounces, or basically 8 ounces, they're all going to be the same cost. Then you get from 8 to 12. So those are all broken down in 4-ounce increments, and they're all going to be the same. Once you hit the 1 pound, then they start rounding everything into the same. So if it's 1.5 pounds, it's a 1 to 2 pound package. If it's 2 and 3 ounces, 2 pounds, 3 ounces, that's a 2 to 3 pound package. So if you have like a 2 to 3 pound package, but it's something small, like I said, a resin figure, sometimes they will give cubic breakdowns that are a discount. So you do want to make sure when you're putting in measurements that you're putting in as accurate as you can be, because there is sometimes these few instances where things like that will come in. I know they offer the flat rate boxes. That is a whole nother discussion for another day. There are sometimes instances where it would behoove you to use the flat rate box, but most of the time it's going to be a very heavy box. It is going to be an instance where maybe people are buying a huge amount of different items from you, and when you collectively add up their shipping costs, it would make it less by doing it in the one box. Or an example where I'm on the East Coast, if I'm shipping something to the West Coast and it falls over the 1 pound mark, it may be best to check out the flat rate envelopes and the flat rate boxes. So for now, this discussion is just to talk about understanding why the post office charges for what they're charging for. and understanding that the size of the item and what it is going to factor in. My example I would give to you on that is if you think about taking your car and driving people to the airport, you have a lot of considerations. You're going to be limited to the number of people that you can fit in your car, which in their example is going to be the number of, is it people or is it package? Is it their luggage? Obviously, it's a lot different for you for how many seats you have for people, but also how much area you have for the things they want to bring with them. Is it going to be a backpack? Is it going to be a carry-on? Is it going to be luggage? This is why they break down these things to whether it's an envelope or whether it's a package, because obviously you can fit way more things like luggage in the car than you can people. So this is where they're starting to break this down. It may seem very, elementary. It may also seem that it's a little bit nitpicky, but that is what they're looking at, is how much goods they can fit in the vehicles for delivery, how many things that they can fit on an airplane. And it really does come down to a lot of factors for them. And that is where you need to factor in basically the size of the package and the type of the package. So I hope this makes sense. I'd appreciate a thumbs up if you got some good content out of this. I would really appreciate if you left any comments down below, if there's any comments or questions that I could clarify for you better. I will say bye for now, and I would really appreciate, before you head out, if you could hit the subscribe button for me and help me grow the channel, and I will catch you in the next one.